Hello, hey everybody. This is going to be episode 3. Uh, kind of took some time off uh, last month just because of the holidays. So let's get this one going. Who knows? Um, my my guest Bart is ready to join in, so let's do this. Bart, you there?
Hey, Kels.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're totally good. I was just doing the usual introduction, which is just me holding up my iPad. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. I usually have studio time in the evenings, and so I was sort of scrambling to get a few things done because I didn't want to be
Oh no.
caught in the middle of projects. And so that's why I was messaging her earlier if you had like an ETA or whatever.
Oh, sure, sure. Hey, we could even show you working on something if you wanted to do that. I
This place is
mean,
a mess. I don't know if I want to do that. Uh,
that's fair.
like it's funny because like one of the fluorescent lights decided not to work tonight, and
Oh,
then
nice.
just a minute ago, someone next door locked themselves out, so they wanted a wire hanger, and so I'm like,
Yeah, I
just
think you'd be the person that would have a wire hanger just laying around.
I'm sure I have one in here somewhere, but I went where my studio is at. There's 4 apartments upstairs, and so I just looked to see which cars were here, and of course the person I knocked on, I woke him up, and but we got a wire hanger, so hopefully
Nice.
our neighbors will um, get in their car and be on their way.
Awesome. Um, yeah, so I mean, these are like super casual, um, just kind of talking about whatever. I don't know. I guess we haven't seen each other in a while. It's probably been 4 months since I've seen you.
Yeah, it's I want to say you dropped off something here at the studio,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but
I
it's
was dropping off the Mean Gene posters.
that's what it was.
Yeah. I mean, you're always busy. I feel like you're always got some good projects going.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a workaholic. Like I tend to, you know, my wife is a saint. I tend to work 7 days a week, like whether it's at in the apartment or at the studio, and I have long-term projects going on, short-term projects going on. Um, I manage to fill the time and always still manage to find a way to kick myself for not doing enough. Um, but but I think with a lot of the conversations I have with my peers, I feel like a lot of us are doing that. Um,
Sure.
this has been a really surreal year. I'm lucky enough that I was lucky enough that at the beginning of the year I lost a lot of my freelance work, but have managed to change my work cycle a little bit where I was able to keep the studio and keep the practice going. So uh,
That's
we're really
good.
we're really grateful for that.
Yeah, no, that's good. Because yeah, I can't, I can't imagine the way that this year has been for, I mean, numerous people. It's been really hard. But I mean, just from, I guess, because I follow a lot of artists, it's always just like artists helping other artists out this whole year of just like, hey, you should check out this person's art. Um, they're working on some really cool stuff. So I'm hoping like, I mean, there's enough like positivity that all these people are sharing art. Maybe people are buying art because they're at home more often. So I'm glad that your freelance kind of turned into a little bit more full studio practice. That's good to hear.
Yeah, and it's in the past we've worked on in the or well even before I met my wife, but in the past I've more worked on like really bigger projects and worked with galleries and consultants and had like 2 or 3 big projects a year that you know, the money wasn't amazing, but it paid the bills. And um, a lot of those commissions evaporated. We'd fill in gaps with like workshops and summer camps and conferences and speaking gigs, and all those things got canceled this year. And one thing I was already doing just for fun was drawing every day.
Mhm.
And for the past 3 years, I had my drawing students do Inktober, and and like the first year, they all groaned they had to draw for 31 days, and it's like it's a draw. This is college.
That's
uh,
like what you do.
that's if you get good at anything, that's what you have to do. And so, I I would draw in ink at least 20 minutes a day with them, just to get them to draw in ink for 20 minutes a day. And the second year I did it in 2019, I just kept doing it, and
Sure.
they were just 20-minute drawings for fun. Um, I have access to a lot of old magazines or used magazines through my wife's business and through different places I go. Well, everybody knows I make stuff out of old stuff and junk, so I, I
Sure.
end up I end up having a lot of stuff. And um, so I would just pick two different things or three different things and combine them in a drawing for 20 minutes or whatever. And over time, people wanted to buy them, but they were like in these little handmade zines, and
Sure.
so I couldn't take rip pages out. And so after about 120 drawings, I realized it was sort of a thing. And uh, we started a Patreon for a test. I put the first standalone drawing on Facebook, and said, "Hey, I'm going to start selling these now." And I think like within 8 minutes, we sold the first one.
Nice.
And then over the pandemic, we decided to make prints out of all of them. And so we have a Patreon where people can buy the originals first, and then but anyone can get a print of any of them. And like instead of selling something for several thousand, like a big sculpture for several $1,000s or an installation, we've been selling little like 4x6 prints for $20, and um, totally changed the game this year. And by making art more like available or accessible to anybody, like we've and basically putting it on social media, like we've sold prints to the United Arab Emirates, the UK, to Australia. Like,
That's awesome.
I've had shows in different places around the world, but never in those places. And it's interesting that by going small, I've actually been reaching a lot more people, and they get to own some of these things because they're just way more accessible now.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
they're paying the bills, and so
No, that's awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
um I've been following along with your daily drawings and they're amazing. I know I've messaged you numerous times when you post that they get taken down from different groups on Facebook just out of people being weird trolls on the internet, I guess.
Well, this has been a it's been a very dramatic and polarized year, and um, with the pandemic, a lot of my friends encouraged me to join like art groups. And in the
Mhm.
past, I, I'm way more private and solitary than people think I am. And in the past, I just posted on my page and on like my website's page. And so this year, I joined a couple groups, and then I got invited to other groups, and um, people have a lot of opinions on the internet.
Weird.
and and I know some of my art definitely pushes buttons because uh, with this being a polarized year, I know where I stand and my family and my wife stands on things. And like uh, we both work in the nonprofit sector. Like I work with education in the schools. Like um, we want a better tomorrow for everybody, not just certain segments of the population. And so a lot of those beliefs come out in the drawings. And I've at first I'd get a lot of um, you get a lot of positive feedback. I don't want to negate that because I do get a lot of positive feedback, but I'd get some really horrible messages that like sometimes were just completely out of context. And um, at first it kind of bugged me, but after a while I realized like this person is in New Zealand or Like, this person's in Ireland. I they don't even know me. Like, but
Yeah.
they're calling me all kinds of horrible things, and uh, uh, but
The
now it's kind of
negative side of the internet.
now I just kind of screenshot it and laugh and repost it, and um, every now and then I hear one of my friends as uh, giving them some grief, and that's not what I want them to do. But um,
Sure.
uh, uh, if someone says something racist, I have no problems posting their picture and posting what they wrote, because I feel
Yeah.
like that is no place in our future. Um, but some of this, I think I even sent you one that was just really ridiculous about,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
or I probably
Yeah.
sent several.
Yeah, there is a couple screenshots. I can't remember the exact wording, but it was just very much like just you're spending this much time not doing anything positive. You're just like trolling around on the internet. You're gonna talk some shit because someone's like doing some productive. They're like speaking their opinion, which we all can do. Like that's like I don't know. I mean, I guess to an extent we can't always speak an opinion if it's a, a terrible fucking opinion. Um, but yeah, like it's art's supposed to kind of draw up those emotions and those conversations. Like there should be conversations, not just like people like I'm gonna message this person and like just like lay into them for no reason. I don't know. It just seems ridiculous that people can waste their time like that.
Um, yeah, even though I do get some of that kickback, um, part of me is still kind of happy that I'm getting it because um, like I feel like art at its essence art is communication, and you're trying to reach somebody with your message, and if people love it, that's great, it succeeded. But I think if
Mhm.
people hate it and they hate it so much they're going to give you crap about it, um, you reach them, and so in some ways it's still successful.
Sure.
For people who look at it and go like then I'm willing to entertain that it probably failed, like it, but um, I like to think I've been doing this for 40 some years now. And so I like to think I know how to communicate a little bit with this.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes there was a few drawings where I was showing my wife the feedback I was getting, and like everybody, um, a lot of conversations go to my anatomy, and
Interesting.
and it's I'm trying to talk about politics or the state of our nation or the state of our world, and like half of the comments will be positive, half the other quarter will be serious, and then there's a segment of the population who wants to talk about like um, what I could do with my anatomy.
Interesting.
And so I figure that just reflects on the maturity of the people I'm interacting with. Like,
Yeah. It I think it's really the thing that's very fascinating to me is so like I guess the first thing I saw of yours wasn't necessarily your drawings. And it's always interesting to see super talented artists that can like multifacet well between and communicate their voice well between everything. Um, and I feel like your whole body of work really does like you can kind of sense this like you're kind of fighting back against different things from like your past or like politics or whatnot. Just with like like being interested in recycling and like just taking it to a whole nother level and like upcycling it into these like really beautiful pieces. That speaks a lot about how much waste we have as a society that we can turn into something beautiful. Um, But yeah, I guess I wanted to talk about like some of your other things too, since we were talking about your drawings. So you've been posting this one painting that you're working on.
Okay.
Can um, can we get an insight on that? Like what it's
Uh,
gonna be?
are you talking about this painting?
Yeah.
Okay. It's um, it's basically an old panel. Oh, from 2012 to about, I think, the fall of 2017. I worked at University of Nebraska at Omaha, and while I taught there, I would salvage stuff out of the waste stream from the university, and so I made a bunch of these like 4 foot panels out of old theater sets. So I would just keep an eye on the theater schedule, and one thing I learned is that when you looked at the last performance date, that night they started tearing down the set. And so starting that night, and then if it was a weekend or whatever, you knew that dumpster would be full of wood. And uh, I would jump in there and just try to salvage as much wood as possible. And most of my paintings are on wood panels, or like some are on like masonite and foam core and stuff like that. But um, like I basically in college, I learned to just scrap things and just start making things out of, like, I didn't have a lot of money as a first generation college student, and trying to pay rent and food and bills and college, and so I was making stuff out of stuff I could get for free, and then it started off really sort of opportunistic, but um, I guess the practice was smart enough it became my career. And uh, so so I feel like there's an element of salvage or collecting in all the work, even the drawings, is sort of collecting images. But this painting is going to be it's it's going to be one of my Ray paintings.
Hmm.
Probably since 2009, I've been painting a series of paintings that have like radiating rays of different colors and sometimes overlap with different patterns. And um, I've been doing a lot of ceramics and a lot of drawing and some commission drawings this year. Um, and I don't know, I just kind of got, I tend to work on different bodies of work in segments. Like I'm kind of getting bored with um, drawing every day, even though it's a discipline and I know I get better the more I do it. Um, but I spend a lot of time with ceramics glazing and underglazing, which is kind of like painting, but it's not painting. Painting's really meditative for me. And so I'm trying to think, like, how would I explain this painting? Basically what happened was um, there's this pile of paint over here. And one of my old college buddies, she messaged me that her husband and her were getting rid of their paint. And um, so um, I basic she basically gave me a color palette. Like, most of these are off whites or whites, but then there's a couple browns, and there's like a really lime green and a kind of a, a light happy purple, because there's a lot of sad purples out there,
Yeah.
um, especially in the paint department at home stores. And basically this is going to be one of my ray paintings that have a set of rays in the background and then a series of pattern over it, but I'm trying to paint it with just the paint that this family is getting rid of. Um, and so, like, all the colors will either be the colors as is, or the colors I mix with them.
Hmm.
And so, um, I use a lot of color theory in my paintings, and I tend to say what I want to say, and I feel like they reflect the color patterns that I like. I guess this painting is. I'm trying to challenge myself to use somebody else's palette and to see like what kind of energy, how I can make it me with somebody else's colors.
Sure. That's
So
kind of, yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about.
it's kind of like I just
Oh,
saw,
Zach, that's
yeah, I just saw his comment about Grimace and
for
Spectrum
anybody
Set.
that for later, since people can't see the comments later, Zach says, "What spectrum of sadness is Grimace from McDonald Land?"
Um,
That's a pretty deep
well,
one.
just think of Grimace's voice. Like, it was never a very positive, uplifting voice, and he's just sort of this lump, this
Yeah.
purple lump touch. Um, I guess when I talk about like, um, I guess that's another thing I can elaborate. Like, I'm painting this painting with house paint, and the majority of my paintings are house paint. Um, for years, I've been getting most of my paints from under the sink on 120th Street. They're the county collection site for Douglas and Sarpy, and so I would just go in there once or twice a week and collect all the colors I could, because like latex paint is like you can get 50 pounds free a day, and like spray paint they limit it to like 3 cans or whatever. But I was interested in like water soluble things, and after a while collecting purples, um, like people want the interiors of their houses or the exterior of their houses to be sort of neutral and quiet.
Hmm.
And that's when I started realizing there were a lot of sad purples, um, like a really lot of muted gray purples, um, and so I just felt, and then like in my dark sense of humor, my head is like, this is like a purple to commit suicide to, and like that's a horrible thing to say, but then at one of the universities used to work at and sometimes do, I got called up to teach a color theory class, and I was like, well, your semester starts like next week, and they were like, yeah, and basically the person that was teaching the class got a different job and gave them no notice,
Oh,
and so it was like here, have a syllabus here. Here's their lesson plans, teach us, this is what you're doing the next 16 weeks. And I'm like I really didn't have time to go through the material and like restructure the class. And so I was like, hey, it's a structure. Hey, it's assignments. We can do this. And so I kind of felt like me and the students were at the same level. And, and I figured, hey, as long as I did the work week 1 week ahead of them, I was ahead of them.
hmm.
And the syllabus and the structure I inherited was pretty old school. Um, like it was basically red, yellow, and blue, and white, um, and with that and black, and you were supposed to basically mix like all the color mixing and all the color theory would be done making the paints that quarter, and having no experience teaching that style or that really old school self discipline. It was frustrating. Like I felt like I had a really good personal relationship to color theory, but when it came to mixing purple and the different oh my god, we wasted so much paint trying to get specific, like the happy range of purples, and like some of the students really never got the difference between tints and stains, and how like darker pigments you add, is like the least of the recipe when you put
Yeah.
things together, and um, as to making like softer palettes and the pastels, like you only need a little bit of color and more white, and like that little bit of color will go far. And um, it was a very frustrating semester. I think those students hated me, um, and I hated the curriculum, and I think I just decided that I would never take a class like 3 days before it started again. Like I'd at least want a couple weeks to like restructure everything and figure out what I would do with the curriculum to make sure all the goals were achieved. So I
That's
don't know. I'm
funny.
just that was just venting.
No, yeah, I mean that would be extremely like frustrating for sure. It's like Okay. Well, I mean, you're kind of in it learning too, so I guess it's kind of like a win.
Yeah, I learned a lot, and um, I think that's been a big uh, it's been a big part of my art. Is like every time something failed, um, I really tried to sit back and look at what I could learn from that. Um, uh, in the past couple weeks, I had a piece that I thought was dry, um, that I put in the kiln, and I was basically kind of rushing it, and and it exploded,
Oh
and
no.
and parts of it got embedded into other sculptures.
Oh no.
And so at first I was just like no, not only did I lose the work on that one sculpture, but like I potentially lost the work in the other sculptures. And I sat with it for a while and thought about it, and then I talked with it with Becca, and like the more I talked about it, I was like, hey, this is all cool because um, essentially I've been trying to learn how to build like coronaviruses, um, out of
Okay.
like really cheap clay slip, and just cast, and they end up being like basically slip casting 100, like a whole bunch of parts, and then slipping and scoring them together. And so basically there's these spheres with these projections coming out of them, and uh, like the two that got the shrapnel were skulls with COVID projections. And so it was like how destructive this virus has been to society. And like I was trying to basically make like this death head COVID virus thing. I was like, hey, that destruction and that shrapnel crap looks cool now, because
Yeah.
um, like I couldn't have done that on my own. Like something had to explode for me to get um, that element of chaos into that sculpture. And so we're gonna reglaze them and refire them and see if it looks cool or not. And um, if it looks cool, we'll go with it. And if it doesn't, um, I know if I think something's dry, I'm gonna wait 2 more days uh, before I put it in the kiln. So
Is um is the coronavirus kind of like the new Trumpling
uh,
or
kind of,
separate?
yeah. I'm still making trumplings. Um, like the ultimate goal, like we've had a few shows where we've tried to sell them, and we've had shows where we just had it straight out as a fundraiser. Like especially that first year, we just had 100% of the sales went to local nonprofits like Planned
Hmm.
Parenthood and the Refugee Empowerment Center, and like especially organizations that were hurt by this administration. Um, but the ultimate goal is to have 1,460 of them, like one kicking little screaming baby for every day he was in office, and do a big installation of all that. But it's so much work, and
Sure.
been almost 4 years, and I'm burnt out of the project, and I know we don't. I know I fell behind with a couple of the bigger commissions I had the last couple of years, and um, when I have the 1460 that I want for the installation, it's over. Like it's
Sure. I mean, because
um,
you're at the start of it, they were doing them like one a day or like fairly like consecutive and often. But like, yeah, I mean, you were going through finding new body parts and like all that kind of stuff. So
and
I'm
it
sure like it gets like you get to kind of spice it up, but at the same time you're like you're getting reminded about this this fucking joke that has been in the office for too long. So like mentally I can see that being very draining.
yeah, like some of the like when I talked about learning from failure, like those first few years, like I have a whole bunch of ugly ones that I don't want to be part of the installation, because I want the installation to be unified. And
Hmm.
it took a while to find the right products to make molds of with the right combination of like this baby body with these too small of arms or these too small legs. And so like we have the bodies that we want to be the installation now, but like we'll probably sell the rest to try to make up some of the, running a kiln and just buying basic materials, like it's an expense. And so we're trying to recoup some of that.
For sure.
Um, but I've I've tried to not think about, like I've had to think about a lot about politics in my paintings and my drawings. Um, but with casting the materials and slipping and scoring them, it's just sort of become monotonous. And um, I've listened to a lot of movies and I've listened to a lot of audiobooks,
Okay.
and a
Sure.
ton of podcasts. Um, because a lot of the work I do is monotonous, whether it's painting or ceramics. And then I basically put on other things in the background at the studio just so my mind has something to do while I'm looking at the the leader of the free world. Um,
Sure.
so it's like maybe I'll learn something or be entertained or see a part of pop culture I would, or listen to a piece of pop culture that was a hit movie a couple years ago that I got for 99 cents at Goodwill.
Yeah.
um,
Okay. Well, so let's bring it into like a more positive thing since you were talking about like listening to music and podcasts and like end of the year lists or like coming out and all that. Do you have recommended music from that you've been, well, I don't know. Has there been something that like really hit you really good this year? Like music or like I guess movies or podcasts?
um, a lot of the music I listen to nowadays is Spotify. Um, like one discovery for me this year was the Budos band,
Okay.
and it's kind of like Afro soul punk. Um, like it doesn't have any vocals. Um, it's just high energy and it's super positive. And so I've had a lot of fun with them. I'm a big fan of singer songwriters, and so I listen to All Songs Considered. Is a podcast from NPR where they cover the full range of music across the world. And um, like from them, I've discovered like bands like Big Thief, like Sun Kill Moon. Um, I'm sure if I pulled up Spotify, I could find more. Um, but like, I'm not sure if what genre they would be in. Like, but like songs that tell a story about, some kind of human truth to that person at least. Those like stories draw me in. Podcasts, I feel it's kind of all over the board. Like I sort of let a bunch of them pile up and then I binge them. Um, uh, like there's a podcast called Lore, sort of about supernatural things that have happened through history. And um, I'm drawing a blank on that producer's name, but he's produced a lot more podcasts. So like American Shadows tells us stories about, just stuff in American history you'll never learn anywhere else. Sometimes not the most positive stuff. They also have one called Noble Blood, where you learn about um, like kings and queens have been famous throughout history and are still are. Just look at British media. Um, but it tells you like all these sort of unsung stories or the stories about these famous people you never heard of. And like recently they covered one on George Washington, and I was like, this is a stretch. And a big part of the show was talking about how he turned down the kingship of the early colonies, which was never offered to him. It's a historical. There's a lot of things we're taught and that are just aren't true. But then it went on and discussed his family tree and how like his George Washington's grandmother was, her sister went back to England and she became like I want to say like the great 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 grandmother of Queen Elizabeth. And so
Hmm,
George Washington and Queen Elizabeth are second cousins 7 times removed, like if you draw the family tree. And I was just like,
interesting.
It's like, I never knew that. Like, and so like I end up learning a lot of things that I'll like sometimes go into my art. Because like in all these songs and these movies and these podcasts, like to to jump back to the drawings momentarily, like most of the drawings all
Yeah.
say, and like the ones that aren't political are kind of ambiguous, and
Hmm.
usually they're quoting a song or a podcast or some weird fact I learned.
I gotcha.
And so
Yeah.
uh, so even though it might be a dog dressed up as the Pope talking about, you know, flavor holes, uh, like if I sat down, I could tell you where all those things came from. Like, but on its surface, it just looks ridiculous, and you either laugh at it or you get hate mail for it. So.
Sure. It's interesting though, because like that, I feel like that whole series, even out of its serious moments, there's comedy to it, which is very much like I feel like to balance to balance some of the negative, you need to have some humor behind it, just to kind of make it a little bit more uh, hopeful, I guess, would be.
I'm right there with you because like drawing every day takes discipline, but some of this is me processing things and staying sane. And even though I feel like I can't do a lot of things in the big picture, I can at least say where I stand. And like throughout the election, there was times where this thing that was supposed to help me stay sane was like, I was like, oh my God, I've been Debbie Downer all week. And so it's time to draw something really ridiculous. Um, and so like I draw like a Chihuahua, having a whisk, like a woman drinking a whiskey, like with a Chihuahua's head with sunglasses, and like she tells you you're lucky to even know me. And Liz Fair song, and that was the weird thing about building audiences on these social media pages, because like I put a ton of hashtags on it, and I think when I posted that one, I hashtag Chihuahua, and I get this notification that this like Chihuahua lovers or Chihuahuas of Mexico has started following you, and so by like tagging these ridiculous animal combinations, like I've gained all these followers. I like, why is a Chihuahua page following like my
Following your art.
political drawings? And it's really fun when they start to like other things. Because I post my ceramics, I post my sculptures, my paintings, I post memes. Like um, you were gracious enough to curate me into a meme show a couple years ago, or
Yep.
and
Yeah, it
maybe,
was a couple years ago.
and so like I never thought like penguin pages or or Chihuahua pages would be following like Bart Vargis just making stuff out of junk and collecting things. But in a strange way, it uh, like I'm not saying I'm smart, but I'm saying like by the practice ended up having smart results.
Yeah.
And like I've been on a couple panels where people are trying to get me to explain these things, and I'm like some of this stuff just happens by accident. Like you have like nothing happens unless you do something, and I'm always doing something. And so like sometimes I'm just spinning my wheels, but um, sometimes actually something positive will come out of it. And like it sounds cliche, but the only way forward is forward. Like you gotta keep moving.
Sure. Um, so like I guess because you've taught and like you're practicing all the time doing your art. Um, what are like some good habits that you've formed over the years that seem to have kind of keep pushing you?
Um, I think working every day is a like I don't think it's not always healthy, but I work on something every single day, and um, I've done some public speaking in colleges and different art centers and groups, and um, like a big popular question related to that that pops up is like how do you deal with writer's block, or how do you deal with creativity block?
Hmm.
And um, and in the past, I like turned that around on the student or the person asking, and I was like, well, what do you do? And I'll say they stock shelves at Target, or what's their job? And they say they stock shelves at Target, or they're a barista. And as like when you go to Target and you have to, shelf, stock the paper goods aisle, um, does your boss care if you're inspired to stock the paper goods aisle? Or if you got a client or you have a customer that comes in and wants a mocha latte foo-foo with 2 extra vanilla squirts. Um, if you're not inspired to make a mocha latte foo-foo like with 2 extra vanilla squirts, do you not do that? Um, um, you it's your job. You have to do that. Your boss is expecting you to do that. And so like if you're a writer or you're a painter or a sculptor or ceramicist uh, uh, or a podcaster,
I don't know if I'd
like
go that far,
you're
but
or
thank you.
you're you're your own boss. And so you have to, sure, we're doing what we do because we love it, but um but you also have to do it because it's your job, and you have to take it seriously. And so for the last, I've been making art for probably 40 years. The last 20 years, um, I've just gotten up and done something, and I've made a lot of crap, and I've had a lot of failures. But like all those failures have taught me something of like what would work, what wouldn't work, what materials not to use in certain situations, um, and even learning what doesn't work. Um, I feel is more of a valuable lesson, because when you put a lot of energy into something and it just kicks you in the teeth, you will remember that. Um, if you put a lot of something and it was totally successful and it went on, got in a show and sold or whatever, and then 3 years later you're trying to replicate that, you're like, how the fuck did I do that? It's just
Yeah,
not it's just not as memorable. It didn't teach you, it didn't have as much impact, and so it's not retained as much. Um, uh, but making our work teaches us how to make our work. And if you're going to be a writer or a painter or illustrator, you just got to get up every day and make something. I know a lot of writers, and I've actually collaborated with a local poet and done some book covers, and we're talking about, we were working on another book, but then that kind of slowed down with the pandemic. Um,
hmm,
but like if you work with a writer, most of them have journals and journals and journals of stuff that will never be published. Um, uh, but my friend Miles at this panel, he talked about this one poem where there was this one golden line in this poem that he kept, and it became parts of all these other poems, and he and it was like all those poems failed except he kept that line, and eventually it worked itself. Eventually, the right poem was built around that one line. Um, but he would have never got to that published poem if he hadn't ever written that first bad poem to
yeah,
get that little kernel. And then he didn't give up on that kernel until it worked. Um, and then you end up with a bunch of journals that there's something in those journals it's part of the journey to getting to the published book, like, if that makes sense.
yeah,
um,
yeah. No, that's an interesting way to think about it too. I guess like, if you're not a writer, you don't think about like, you know, you have like a couple good ideas and like, I don't know, you think like the one thing that you write that in, that's the one that's going to be the thing. Because like as an artist, it's like you have an idea and you're like, oh, this is going to be the thing, but it never really is that thing because I don't know, you're always kind of like editing like a piece that you're working on until you either like scrap it completely or like you're just like, okay, this is good. But like you don't think about like how many other pieces probably came and like went into that one piece. I don't know. It's just kind of yeah. Sorry, I was like piecing around different
No,
processing that all.
I feel like we're on the same page. A lot of times with students, and it's kind of hard now that I'm teaching online. Like art is like English class. Like when when you took a creative writing class or just English 1600 or whatever, like your professor made you do drafts. Like you started with an outline, like a skeleton, you fleshed it out, you wrote the paper, they would give you edits and you'd have to rewrite the thing. And oftentimes like your final paper, I think when I was in college, my final paper for the second English composition class, I had to rewrite it 10 times and I hated it. Um, but it was a damn good paper by the end of it. Um, I think the temptation with like elementary drawing or painting or whatever, like we want all of our work to bear fruit, um, mm, but not the first draft of everything isn't going to be that best thing. Like sometimes it's that 10th draft, um, sometimes it's the third draft, but I find a lot with students they want, I spent 2 hours on this. I want a grade. I'm like, well, first of all, you didn't listen to the assignment, and or the goal of the curriculum at this point of the course. And I would go back and look at this, and this, and then actually read the second paragraph of the assignment again. And and they don't want that. They just want a grade then. And like with education, I agree in the curriculum and like the foundational elements of art or principles, design, goals of the assignments. But there's also an experience of making that needs to happen, um, and that takes time. Uh, and I try to convey that to my students that not all of the work you do is going to bear fruit. Um, but then once I get back to my studio, I find I want all the work I do to bear fruit. But I know because I'm a human being, um,
Yeah,
and
yeah. We all want that gratification like that. Like, well, I put this time in. Like, I deserve this. Yeah.
but after all these years, I try to remember to listen to my own advice, which can be some of the hardest advice to listen to because um, it's like, no, that's what I would tell them. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard to um, self-govern. I guess I don't know how you would say it. Like,
Yeah, it's like you feel like it's harder to put the rules on yourself sometimes because like you're de you're defining your own rules, but if but there's still like those basic like the basic rules that you need to be like, okay, I can't just like, expect this to be like the one that gets me famous, even though like in your mind you're like everything I make's gonna be famous. Like I don't
I think yeah, it's so weird. Like the thing I'm working on at the moment seems to be like the piece that I feel is so smart. Like this is I'm finally jabbing Disney like no one else ever jabbed them, and but then you move on and you go on to make other things, and uh, you go back and you look at that thing you thought was going to be famous or the thing that was gonna sell or going to pay the rent the next couple months. It's still sitting there, and you blow the dust off it, and it doesn't look as smart as you thought it was 2 years ago or whatever. And
yeah.
it's yeah, the thing I'm most excited about, like it's a little sidetracked, but the thing I'm usually most excited about is whatever I'm working on at the time. Uh,
Yeah.
Everything else is old. Like
Yeah, it's like, finished touched, like whatever. It'll sit there until it sells, which is hopefully soon because it deserves to sell.
I'm laughing at Zwean's feedback.
Yeah.
So like when you were talking, I didn't mean to laugh.
No, you're fine. Yeah. Zach's been hitting the comments hard. At one point, he did send a question. He said, "When is it okay to touch Bart's hair? It's super okay if I'm straight, right?"
um, um, I
I think Zach's he's trying to say that we all miss hugging you.
oh well, I'm
Maybe.
talking to you guys. I miss just seeing people. Um, like I probably haven't seen Zach since February, if not before that. Um,
Yeah. Have you,
if
so with the pandemic, I know it's kind of like hard for all of us to like run into each other, like we usually do. Just like being being out at a show or like First Friday, which is happening now. I know a few of us still feel weird about, partaking in those things, but it's also very good that people are still like excited for art during this time. But like, do you you normally had kind of like a group of like people that would get together and critique, right? Before like before this year kind of hit us.
Yeah, I was part of a critique group that was local. It kind of fell apart a little bit before the pandemic. It was pretty successful for a couple of years, but I think I, basically every month we would meet at somebody's studio and discuss their latest project. Um, but like most groups, you usually have big numbers in the beginning and lots of enthusiasm, and then you realize who your leaders are, who is like coordinating, like what are we going to do next month, and then everyone only has so many projects, and so I think we hit a spot where um, we had already seen everybody's project, and then and then one of our main coordinators left the country, and so it just sort of disbanded. And then the pandemic hit,
Sure.
and like I'm in contact with most all those people now that I think about it. Like two or three of them have actually left town. Um, uh, for me, there's a big hole. Um, like I type up a weekly list about what's going on in the community, and there's been times it's been really thin as far as like art and music because people weren't meeting. Now
Hmm.
things are starting to start back up, but I think a lot of people are leery, depending on what their health situation is. Um, like me and Becca were both in a group show in First Friday last month, but like we went when it opened. Like we saw the show, we thanked the coordinator for having us be part of it, and then we went back home. Um,
Hmm.
and it's not that we don't support our fellow artists. It's just like I've only seen my mom once since February, and like she has a respiratory issue and she's on oxygen, and like I can't risk seeing her um, if I want to spend the rest of my life with that we have on this planet. Um, I'd rather not see her for a year than never see her again.
Yeah.
And I don't know. For me it's a bit of a hard place to be because like I believe in this art community and I support this art community, but um, it's been I've just had to virtually support it this year, um, and I hope all my friends realize that like I still support them. Uh,
Yeah. It's hard because you feel like that was part of it was like the showing up. Like that's like a big part of like hey, I've been paying attention to what you've been doing. I'm excited that you got to this point. But now it's just kind of like, hitting back like each other, just like, hey, what are you working on? Like, how's everything going? It's different. It's strange. Especially being like social people that artists for the most part are. Obviously not every artist is ultra social.
I think there's introverts and extroverts, but I feel like most of us are a combination of both. And like I deal with a lot of young artists in education, and a lot of them want to know how to become part of the art community. And like just showing up and being part of the art, like it's so straightforward. Just go to the openings, see who shows at Pet Shop, see who shows at Star Deli, see who shows at Project, you know, like talk to the artists, like, if there's something you like, tell them. If there's something you don't know, ask them. And over time, you're going to find out who runs the space, what kind of, you're going to find out what venue your work probably would be a good fit. And um,
Hmm.
that doesn't happen overnight. It's like your relationship with the community is a relationship you have to work on. And I feel with the pandemic, I haven't been working on mine. and and like I'm so excited to see all these new names and younger artists coming up, and I have to Google them or I have to look for them on Instagram because I don't know who this person is, and then I see their art and I was like, oh my god, I saw that on the side of a building, or I saw that on so and so's Instagram feed, um,
Yeah.
where previous years we'd be talking to them. um,
Yeah. There'd be more introductions.
um, it's been a hard year. Uh, like I said earlier, some of these drawings are just to stay sane. Uh, like uh, like I'm more introverted than people think I am. Like over the years, I've covered my social anxiety, like confidence and composure, and um, but I feel like working out of my apartment, I feel like my social anxiety is has gotten worse. Like um,
Sure.
um, we've gone to a couple like socially distant campfires in people's backyards, and I'm like sitting there going like, I know one person here. Like, how do you talk to a stranger? And it's so silly. Um, but like internally, it's not. Like we're all. This has been a hard. It's been a big health like pandemic crisis, but I feel like the shutdown and the isolation and like how serious you've taken it or not has like there's been some mental health consequences to this, and um, I really miss hugs. Um,
Yeah.
we've um, because the people you're close enough that you actually embrace and you let them in your space. Like I feel like that's a big part of not feeling alone. And um, uh, like I hug my wife every day, but I'm so grateful I have her, but I miss my community.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange, but I'm happy to see that it's still moving because I was kind of nervous at first. Of like with I don't know, it's one of those things I have a torn opinion about just because like I want everybody to be safe and I want everybody to be taking it seriously. And I know like it's hard to, like with bands having to kind of switch over to do like live streaming shows versus like playing in front of crowds, which is like a totally different vibe, or like, artists doing online shows, which like I feel like part of like the in-person experience is like just like absorbing everybody's reactions, like no matter what, or like you're just kind of seeing how people are playing off of your work, and it makes you a little happy. You're just kind of like you're vibing with it, um, messing with the endorphins. And so like now we're like super, I don't know, super introverted now because now we're all like, it's weird because now we're all looking at our phones because we're trying to do things virtually. And like, I don't know, it's that weird thing where like we all kind of like, or at least like with my generation, like growing up with like electronics, you're like used to having a phone in front of you or like some kind of like electronic device just like distracting you. But it's like now, like just to hang out with someone, I would love that. Like I've never like hated technology, I think more than this year. Um, sorry, that's kind of like a weird little rant too.
No, but I think it's, things that get sidetracked are tied back to something. Um, like part of me, I was going to private message you about seeing like, I don't know, I know, you're a father and you have, a full-time schedule, but I was going to see if you just wanted to like, um, maybe one day if we found a time that worked, like walk around half of Lake Zorinsky and just have an in-person conversation, like
Yeah.
walking outside in in the open air, and you know, I'm not gonna hug you, but just to just to
Yeah.
inter and like have a verbal hug and just see where just to reconnect because I haven't seen you for months. Like, you know,
Yeah. No, that I would love that. It'd be great. I know it's kind of hard because I mean, working in a grocery store, I feel terrible going around people that don't have to like go out. I'm just like I'm around, like 100 employees and like hundreds of customers that like I have to be in close contact with. Where it's just kind of like if I have something and then like I go see someone that's been like, you know, hasn't been as fortunate like to at least have a job or like been able to distance like because they have like an online job or just like for their health like they've just been like distancing like it's been yeah it's a weird situation because like I know I'm just I'm just out there like it's if I don't know if if it if it gets bad it could end up happening to me like it's happened to numerous people at my store like we've had at least a dozen people test positive, and we've had one death at the start of it. So like, I don't know. It's strange. It's a strange year,
it's
but
but like I have a lot of respect for you how serious you're taking this,
thank you.
because there's I feel like I feel like there's a big segment of the population taking this serious that isn't as visible as the part of the population that isn't taking it serious.
Yeah,
And and
seeing everybody like out and about every weekend, or
or
like I was out on I was coming home because I was where was I at? It was like Thanksgiving night, and I think I had to run to the gas station or something like that to get some gas and a soda because I always grab sodas. But just like seeing these people walking down Benson, like bar hopping, I'm just like, this is like the worst time to be bar hopping. Like it's Thanksgiving. You're probably already in like a mixed family environment earlier, and now you're gonna go out socially drinking. Like it's frustrating to me at least. I know it is to some people, some other people. Hopefully, eventually everybody wises up and like they all care about it. It just it sucks because it's like you want to support well like the good people. They want to like support like the venues and the artists and like they want the interaction. Like I don't know, like earlier I was watching like BFF live streams and so like I miss being able to walk up the street from my house just to like see some art and to see some friends. It's such a weird thing where it's now just like I gotta hunker down and just hang out with my son.
Yeah, me and Becca have gone through the same thing because like it used to be sort of like date night for us. We would see most of our friends' shows, and then we'd get dinner somewhere, like maybe go to M's or maybe Chingon or and and now it's either you know a lot of times it ends up being we make dinner at home, and then I work at the studio, and she's watching Netflix or reading a book.
Yeah,
um and it's so much different. It's so different. And um like I almost feel guilty, like I unloaded the kiln and I'm painting, and then I try to get ready for this tonight, and I know just blocks away, like all these people I love are putting on events, and um like I feel guilty, like I kind of feel guilty not being there, but um we we all have to, for a while now, we're all going to have to make our own decisions on how serious or our levels.
priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I apologize. I have an old phone, and the video kills the battery, so I've been hooked to the charger this whole
Oh no, no worries. uh, yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't even know how long we've been going. Usually, well, it's been like an hour. I don't know. We can call it, but we should like leave it on like a on a high end, since we've been reminiscing of times when we could hug.
Well, is this recorded? Will this be on your Instagram page or in your
Yeah.
stories?
So after it's done being live, then it'll get pushed to the like the Instagram video or like the IG video thing. Um, I've been trying to, so for some reason I can't get the videos to download like from Instagram, so I have to like go through a whole little like workaround and download them, but they'll eventually, I'm hoping to get them all up on YouTube, so then they'll be on YouTube as well. But this will be live, or not live, but people can come to my Instagram and watch the video anytime they want. So
Okay. Yeah, I saw in your one of your Instagram stories that you were doing this, and I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. I wonder if you'd interview me. And so
yeah,
when you reached out, I was just like, oh my God, he did. So in a way,
it's
you kind of gave me a social media hug, um, because I was kind of hoping that we would have this conversation. So
good.
so thank
Yeah,
you.
it was. Yeah, no problem. It's the concept had kind of been a thing for a while. I had approached Alex Jocham about doing like a podcast type series with like Pet Shop, but it was at a time where like I didn't really have a lot of time to like invest in it, and I didn't really know where I was going with it, and I don't know, it just never happened. One of those plans, and so it was one of those things this year where I was like, I don't get to see that many people like outside of like my work friends. Um, so like I wanted it to kind of be like a, yay, I get to hang out with this person tonight, get to reconnect with them, but also like I'm hoping to get a few like people that I've never talked to before on here. I've been messaging a few different people, just trying to like, I don't know, it's supposed to be kind of loose, but still trying to have a schedule. um, so yeah, I'm hoping to get to be doing more of these. I think, I don't know, I kind of enjoy. I'm not, I don't know, I'm not a talk show person, but I'm at least enjoying interviewing people. So it's kind of a, I guess it's kind of a selfish thing, but I'm
Well,
hoping that, oh, sorry, what?
I like kind of tying back to our discussion earlier. You're gonna learn stuff by doing this via this format, and so like when you do get to the time where you can maybe be part of a podcast with Pet Shop and all that, like you're 3 weeks. You're 3 weeks. I can't talk. You're 3 weeks into this. Like I'm sure you've learned workarounds already. You've referenced and things.
Hmm.
So like it's bearing fruit. Like
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's, I think it ties into also like the, how I have, I don't know, like as much as I love working on art, I'm never really good at presenting my own art. So I always find it easier to present other art and other artists. And so like I'm hoping this like helps introduce new people to new artists and new thinkers. Um, I don't know, like in like how I was kind of doing I was trying to curate some shows too for a while. Like I really like that idea. So hopefully this kind of works into it too. Like kind of cure like a curation of interviews. I don't know. We'll see.
it sounds great to me. I've been really honored to be a part of this, Kels.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Bart. It's always really good to see you and talk to you.
Likewise.
You're I I know you've probably heard it in the community here, but like you're a huge help. Like your work and like everything you do behind the scenes like is definitely appreciated. Like no matter even if you can't be there, um, your list always helped me out because I'd always there'd be times where I'd have to work on a Friday, but I'd be like, oh man, like at least I know this was happening, and like hopefully I can like try to figure out when I can see this next time or see it like at a later date. So I mean, keep doing everything you do. Keep being awesome.
That's the plan. Um, I I love this community and I believe in it, and I just want to see everybody succeed. And um, it takes a lot of work on everyone's part, and I'm glad I'm I'm glad it, I'm glad that you use those resources and stuff. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah. Well, I don't know. I like my last guest, Mark, he suggested like doing updates. So I'm sure we'll do like another little like updated like chat of some sort, later on. Can tell us more of how the COVID sculptures are going and what else you're working on.
I would like that.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll talk to you later. Obviously, this isn't going to end our conversation, like, but for tonight, thanks for everybody showing up, tuning in. Thank you to Bart for being an amazing artist and guest.
Well, thank you for having
um, Please check out his art. Also, check out his Patreon. Um, the daily drawings are amazing, and $20 is super cheap for a really good piece of art. So um, that is just me trying to help plug you. I don't know. I'm trying to
me.
get better at that.
There's a new website called bartswag.com, and
Okay.
all the drawings that didn't sell from previous months are there, and then all prints for every drawing from 120 to I think we're at 430 now or 31.
Damn.
All those prints are on there and available if anyone wants to get a particular drawing of a dog dressed as a pope or a high esteemed.
Yes. Well, have a good night, Bart. It was really good talking to you.
It's good to see you, Kaus. You have a
Good
good
to
one.
see you. Thanks, you too.